I'm Lance Lambert. Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Vehicle Show. We are in Tustin, California at the Marconi Automotive Museum. This is one of the most supreme, superb, and fantastic museums in the entire world. There is a collection of kind of a real cross-section, but it leans a lot towards racing cars. You're going to see some old kind of hot rod cars. You're going to see some Italian race cars. You're going to see some Indy type cars and Formula One cars. It is a beautiful collection. And how did this collection come about in this wonderful facility? Well, Dick Marconi is responsible for this. Come on in here, Dick. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you very much for having us in your collection today. This is just gorgeous. What a layout.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for being here.
How did this all come about?
Well, I used to have a race shop when Johnny and I were racing full-time. He was a champ in the Indy Lights. He was champ in the Formula Fords. And
this is your son, Johnny?
Yeah, my son, John. But anyway, we need my vitamin business was growing so fast. They threw us out of factory. We had 5,000 feet in the back of the factory, so we had to look around. And we started looking around, and we found this old salad oil manufacturing plant. That's how it pretty much got started, racing and storage for some of our cars.
This place is beyond clean. It is absolutely spotless. I should have little footies over my shoes or something here. Well, the collection you have is breathtaking, and right here we have an absolutely gorgeous gull-wing Mercedes-Benz. How did this come into your collection?
Well, it was donated by a good friend of ours who taught us, me particularly, and my wife Bo and Johnny, how to drive faster. Russell Spence, he donated the car to us, and it's completely restored. And this back in the 50s or 60s, when it came out, it sold for $11,000. And I'll tell you, I said, why would you pay $11,000? Why would anybody pay $11,000 for a car like this? You know, the doors open up like this. The gullwing, yeah, you can't get in. The windows go down a little. There was no air conditioning on it at the time. The value on it's $300,000 now, so I was really wrong. But I didn't know anything about that, you know.
Well, we all got smarter.
Right.
Your collection here just really runs the gamut, and I'm going to kind of jump ahead to a really other end of the spectrum. You have a fire engine in here that's pretty amazing. Can we take a look at that?
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right. Well, it's red, but it's not exactly a Ferrari that we're sitting in here.
Well, it's Ferrari red anyway, and that's neat. It was nice of you to wear a red shirt today.
It was very intentional.
And they always said, what color black is Dick's new suit? So, I mean, I wear my typical black. It goes with everything. But I had a chance to get this car, this fire engine, and it was only $35,000 at the time. And I was blown away that something that was completely restored. The engine, which is 1,103 cubic inch. I mean, the pistons are this big. It's only 6-cylinder. And it has 18 spark plugs. You know, 3 plugs on each cylinder. So I said, you know, I got to have that. And I called my son, John, who will be here a little bit. And I said, Johnny, I have a chance to get this Aaron's Foxfire 1937 fire engine. He said, Dad, it's going to take up the place of 3 or 4 really neat cars. And he said, you know, we can get some muscle cars and Ferraris and stuff. He said, I don't think we have room for it. You know, and we have about 30,000 feet here. So I said, let me talk to Vince. Vince is his son, my grandson, and he was about 7 or 8 then. And I said, Vince, what do you think if Grandpa gets a fire engine? Red, it looks like new, I mean, chrome and everything on it. He says, yeah, Grandpa, let's get it. And here it is.
Yeah, imagine a young boy wanting you to have a fire engine. That's just hard to understand.
Yeah.
Speaking of kids, that's kind of the bottom line of what we're looking at here. This is a place for you to be able to help children, correct?
Yes, yes. It started out as like I say, as a place to store some of our cars and to use as a race shop when we were racing. And then it went to, well, let's make an auto museum out of it. And put the cars on display and let people come in. And we started out with the Marconi Automotive Museum for kids, and I like kids because it's kids of all ages. But then shortly after that, that was my daughter and my son and another employee that worked here, that we made it a museum. And then when Bo came on board, and she runs the place.
Bo's your wife?
Yes. And she's just done an incredible job. We made it into a 501c3 charitable organization. And we raise up around $1 million a year net for kids.
Your involvement with children, besides the charity, obviously it also belongs to some of the racing cars here. This, I'm not going to fit in this. You might, but I'm not going to fit in this.
No, I'm not going to fit in it either.
What's behind this and this type of racing? If somebody watching, a lot of parents watch this with their kids, and kid is thinking, well, I want to get into racing. Where do I start? Is this where it all starts for some of the kids?
No, I think I'd advise them to do go-karts, and you learn more about racing in a go-kart and the feel, because you can be going very, very fast, and the power to weight ratio is about like that of a Formula One car. So you can do, the four-wheel drifts, and you can go into a turn drift in, you can oversteer, understeer, and so you really learn a lot. I think race car drivers come from karts first, and they're a lot less expensive than the smaller race cars. And then you go to normally the Formula Ford. But you can go to this one too, the little minis, and they're fun.
So this type of car is still, I know this on the wall here you have, this was an article on a long ago issue of Rod and Custom about this particular car, but is this type of car still being raced?
I don't think they race these anymore.
Okay.
It would be way too expensive and probably too dangerous for the kids.
Well, Dick, this one I might be able to fit into. It's going to be tight, but I might be able to get into this one. What do we have here?
It's a English car, a Chevron B17, and you had to be, look at that safety, and you're sitting between two gas tanks, high octane fuel. It's got a Lotus twin cam on there, and it gives 190 to 200 horsepower. But the power to weight ratio is incredible. And you notice we don't have slicks, because it's in vintage racing, you had to have it pretty much like when they raced them. So they had treads on them.
So this level of racing, this is Formula One. Am I correct?
No,
Okay.
This was just open wheel.
Open wheel,
it would
okay.
be, I'm not sure which class it was in. It was the class faster than this, more like the Atlantic series, or in Europe, the Continental series, as opposed to the Formula Fords behind us here. And that is a same size chassis and everything, but a smaller engine, 4-cylinder. But a single carburetor.
You mentioned the vintage racing. When people are out doing that, I see, at the races on the same track at the same time, you have such an array of older race vehicles. I know everybody's out there and they want to win, but also they're driving something that's pretty special that they don't want to wreck. So where's the fine line between wanting to get past that guy in front of you but not endangering his car or yours?
I think it's how much money you have, more than anything else. When you go out there, you juxtaposition yourself back into a teenager, and you're all hormones driving. You want to win, and you may have another car that's a higher class. You may be racing this guy with that car, so he's probably going to beat you. But he may be worried more about hurting his car than you are, and so you can beat him. And it's not how fast they go down a straightaway, it's how fast you go through the turns, and that's where they're one.
Dick, we were talking earlier about this particular car, and apparently it has quite an impressive history.
Well, the biggest history with the Lotus 23B, it's a 1962 rather old one. It's a sports racer, which delineates it is the 2 seats. It's a 2-seater, and this actually was a 2-seater. And being English, you can see they drove it on the right-hand side. It won almost every event that John raced it in the vintage series. And he would be racing as a sports racer against Mustangs and Corvettes and everything else. And it had this 1600cc engine in it, and but 170 horsepower maybe at the most, against 400 or 500 horsepower. But it's not how fast you go down a straightaway. It's how fast you go through the turns.
Right, yeah.
If you come out onto the straightaway, out of a turn, 2 miles an hour faster, you'll be 10 miles an hour faster than the guy that's 2 miles slower at the end of the straightaway. And so he was just lightning, and he could pass you on either side.
And speaking of he, John, being your son, John Marconi, who drove this car, let's get a little input from him on this. So, John,
Okay.
come on in here.
Look at that old man. He's got gray hair already.
So, John, your dad said you've had some pretty good luck in this car. You've won a few races and been in lots of races.
This car has been a lot of fun to drive. This car there's something about it that you're so low to the ground. Your tail section's about 1.5 inches off the ground, and with it being a two-seater, it just and driving it on the right-hand side, it's a whole different environment from the Formula cars and the other cars we've driven in the past.
Now, John, I understand that as Dick, your dad, was driving this, that something it's had some body work done on it in the not too distant past. Is that correct?
Yeah, it got narrowed a bit. What happened was, it's kind of an interesting story. My father, we originally got in the car for him. And we all fell in love with this. It's a very sexy shape as far as cars go. And what happened was, we were out at the Palm Springs Grand Prix, and he went out to qualify and did very well with the car, and came in, and my crew chief, or Jim Diullo at the time, Jimmy came in and said, you know, Dick, is there a problem with the car? And Dad says, no, it ran good, everything's good. He was fast, you know, qualified I think second, and he said, well, you creased the side of the car. And he says, you know, he got out, and he says, no, I didn't hit anything. I could tell you if I hit something. He got out there, and sure enough, the whole side of the car there was not any heavy body work, but it just hazed the guardrail. We were running walls at the time.
That's a new pinstriping on the
Yeah,
side.
new pinstripe. We call it Texas pinstriping, okay. Yeah. And so what happened is, we got, the big picture is, he drives on the right-hand side in this car. Well, he's blind in the left eye. So if he can't see the front wheels, he can't triangulate where the edge of the car is. So on left-handers, and on the exit of right-handers, he had a tendency to haze the wall.
This is a race by feel kind of thing.
Well, we were all told, you know, I didn't do much in the way of driving instructors, but the big philosophy with driving instructors, they tell you, if you're paying for all the track, use it. Well, he used about every bit and more. He got his money's worth.
Yeah, great. John, I've been lucky enough to drive a car in a couple of races, kind of an exhibition thing, but I know enough about racing to know that this thing must corner terribly.
Yeah, there's one thing or two things that these things don't do well, and that's turn and stop.
Yeah. And this, Budweiser, this is a pretty famous dragster you have here.
This is Kenny Bernstein's dragster when they first used the chameleon in the Budweiser commercial with the 3 frogs. And it also is this is his car, the first one to break 300 miles an hour.
In a quarter mile.
Yeah,
just amazing.
That's moving.
The power plant on this is?
That's I believe it's a Keith Black nitro motor. It makes in the neighborhood, they don't have dynos that'll hold them. Makes in the neighborhood of 7,000 horsepower. I mean, it annihilates you.
Mm-hmm. John, speaking of very fast cars, and fast cars that have always been appreciated, but they certainly are appreciated now, all the Chrysler products. Here we have a 1969 GTX Plymouth. This is an amazing restoration on this car.
This was done by a friend of mine. It's kind of a long story, but he had it for 10 years, and it was in pieces and parts. And he would get the pieces and parts restored and put it away, and it went through 3 or 4 transitions from the Midwest, East Coast, back here. Gary just finished it, and he probably was working on it off and on for the last 2 years, getting the car assembled, and it came out. It's probably one of the finest examples of a Hemi, 69 Hemi GTX there are.
Why do you think it was that for decades, if it wasn't a Chevrolet, or it wasn't General Motors or Ford product, it was not up to snuff, and then all of a sudden the Mopars, the Chrysler products, just went through the roof in value and popularity? What happened?
You know, part of it's Dodge corporate, you know, pushing the Hemi commercials and the late model cars. You know, I mean, the Toyota and a lot of other people have Hemi heads out for a long time, hemispherical combustion chambers. Chrysler had the trademark on the name. And when they started pushing their advertising, I think that helped brought awareness to it. But there was a lot fewer of them built. You know, there was, I mean, a Camaro, you can find one in every corner. A 55, 56 Chevy, you go to every car show and every other car is a 55, 6, or 7. These are unusual. And then when you get the Hemis in them, they're just a rare piece. And they were known as, they were the fastest car on the planet of their time. Mm-hmm. In 68, 9, 70, 71, when the Dodge boys took it over and really started making the cars fast.
Yeah, and then the build quality on the Chrysler products, forgive me, was not quite up to what it should have been, so they didn't last quite as long.
When the Chevys had the unibody, or a subframe style unibody, these had a straight unibody, and and they had a lot of places that water would accumulate, and they were just annihilated in the salt in the Midwest and the East Coast. When you put salt on the ground, it just captured it everywhere. And they were in a matter of 3 to 5 years, they were blistering and had rust buckets. Even with the coating on, they leaked like a sieve.
So there are a few of them that lasted, so now the ones that did last, the value went through the roof.
This car was, what, $3,500 in its day, maybe $3,800 in its day.
Right.
This car right now is a $70,000 to a $90,000 car.
Magic word or words here, Hemi Cuda.
Hemi Cuda.
This is fantastic.
That is, that's 2 words that are synonymous with speed.
Yeah. And the history of this particular car, where did this come from?
This car came from Kentucky. It was a little ratty when we got it, and we tore it apart. And Vince, he's 14 now, my oldest son, has a real affection for Mopars. He's the guy that got me into Mopars. I've been into Ferraris and driving for Ferrari and Fords, you know, Mustangs and stuff. And he got us into the Mopars, and we've not looked back.
This has the world famous shaker hood on it. Can we take a look at what's underneath that shaker hood?
Absolutely. One of the reasons they called him a shaker is because that's exactly what they did. The air cleaner assembly is mounted to the top of the motor and the carburetor, and it's got braces that go off onto the valve cover. And when the motor moves, the air cleaner shakes through the hole in the hood.
Which was a great piece of marketing on their part. It's like, rather than try to figure out something to fix this, we'll just capitalize on it. Very rare car, not many of them around. Tell me a little bit about what we're talking about value here.
They're starting to get stupid money. You've heard of stupid fast. This is stupid money. You know, there's a hole in that hood.
There is. Look.
There's a hole in that hood. They are the coupes are. There was about 80, 85 coupes built. The coupes are in the neighborhood of the $600,000 to $800,000 range. The convertibles, there was only 11 built, and those are now currently trading at just under $3 million. It's just getting crazy what's going on.
Well, John, I know you have to take off.
It was a pleasure.
We're going to talk to Dick here a little bit more back in here, so go ahead and take off. And what a fine looking pair here. What do you think, huh?
The dinosaur.
Yeah, but he's got a smaller nose.
Okay, John, thank you very much.
Take care.
Dick, let's look at a few more cars.
All right. Thanks.
things that I avoid doing on the show is ever asking anybody how much their car is worth. But I frequently get asked by viewers, that car that you had on your show, what do you think it was worth? Well, I'm going to cut right to the chase on this one. You have this one of one. This particular Ferrari is insured at $10 million, and you think it's worth well more than that.
When you have one of anything, it's like a, you know, the Hope Diamond. All right, it's a one of a kind. It was made for the Sultan of Brunei. It was sent to Frank Williams, and he was going to put $1 million real Formula One transmission in it, like you're going down the road at 180 miles an hour, not in a school zone. And you have a second gear turn, and you're in sixth. You just hit it 4 times. The computer in there tells it when to shift down, and so all you have to do is brake and steer and gas. And but apparently they had some debacle in Brunei, didn't pay Frank Williams, and he foreclosed on the car. I bought the car, and it's worth, I would not sell it for $10 million. All right, it's insured for that, but I would not sell it for $10 million. I think to have a one-of-a-kind Ferrari, it's priceless.
Mm-hmm. This particular one-of-a-kind Ferrari, what's the running gear in this, and what's the?
It's an FX. The car is called an FX, and it's a 12-cylinder, probably Testarossa type engine. Forza did a magazine article on it. It was just, you know, they took it out, and I was filming it, you know, and I was where Tim was, taking pictures of the guy driving it, and it's really a neat ride.
Well, Tim behind the camera there, and the crew truck, he usually keeps about $9 million cash, because you never know what you're going to, you know. Could I go get that? I mean, you won't take $9 million for it?
Let me see the color of the money.
I'll be right back.
Oh, yeah, okay. And I'm the tooth fairy.
We've been walking through the collection here, looking at some great cars, but Dick's chest puffs out just a little bit when he talks about this one. Tell us about this car.
Well, this is my favorite, and I'm really blessed. I live off a dirt road, so 4 miles, so I have an old truck that I drive, and it always is in a state of filth. And the dogs are in the back seat and climbing all over me. But and I can call in and say, Danny, I need the red car, which is this one, and it's a 550 Maranello. And I'll tell you, if God was going to have a car made for himself, he would call Enzo Ferrari, not long distance now either, and he would say, Enzo, make me a 550 Maranello, and it may be white or something, but he's going to have this car. It has a little Bose stereo in it, which is awesome for sound. It's power assist. It's on the brakes. It's power assist on the steering. It has great air conditioning. I mean, it is absolutely incredible car to drive. And it's a 200-mile-an-hour car.
And this is a 1997.
Yes.
Dick, I'm not challenging your knowledge on this. I've been real impressed with what you know about these cars. But I think the only way for me to believe what you just said about the drivability of this car is for me to drive it.
Do you know how to use a 6-speed?
I've never driven one before, but I've always wanted to.
Okay, we'll get the insurance company over here.
Dick, we have had so much fun here at the Marconi Museum. Thank you so much for the tour. It's just an impressive facility. If somebody wants to come take a look at this, how do they go about it?
Well, it's open from 9 to 5 weekdays. We welcome you to come. And it's always open, and they'll take you on a tour by people that know more about each car than I do.
All right, well, if you look at the screen, there's some contact information there. So we are done. I will see you again next week. Thank you so much for watching the show. And Dick, let's go for a ride.
Hey, it sounds good to me.
All right. Hey, it's a tough job. Somebody's got to do it. See you next week.